Hello and welcome to another ARM Innovation Coffee. My name is Robert Wolf, and in this episode, we'll be meeting with Brandon Satram, Director of DevX and DevRel at Blues Wireless. Now, today marks a turning point in the Innovation Coffee live stream. If you haven't already noticed, my co-host Alessandro Grande is no longer a part of the program. After almost a full year of hosting this stream, he's moved on to a new and exciting chapter in his career. So before we get started, I would like to quickly toast to Alessandro. Cheers, Alessandro, for the amazing efforts he gave to this stream and to his success moving forward. So I'm going to take a little sip here. Awesome. So now before we dive into this episode, let's do a quick recap of last week. Now, in last week's episode, we met with the folks from the Things Network, also known as TTN. A lot of people will refer to it as that, to talk about the company, all the cool things that they're working on, their developer network, and so much more. So if you missed last week's episode and you have an extra hour in your day, you can go get caught up here. And I'm going to do this real quickly. Going to share this in the YouTube chat. There you go. As a reminder, if you enjoy this stream and all of our other streams, please like this video and don't forget to subscribe to the ARM Software Developers YouTube channel. Okay, so now that we're all caught up, let's meet our guests. It's my honor to introduce Brandon Satram, Director of DevX and DevRel at Blues Wireless. So let's bring Brandon into the chat. Brandon, welcome. Hello.
Hey, Robert. How are you?
Good. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent. Excellent. Glad to hear. Yeah. So, usually we have Alessandro here on with us. You know Alessandro very well. We did a clubhouse with him not too long ago. He will be sorely missed, but the show must go on, as they say in Hollywood. So, welcome. And we have some really cool stuff for everyone watching today. Now, as we usually do in these streams, the first thing we want to do is get to know you as our guest, our featured guest. So if you wouldn't mind kind of providing us your origin story, who are you? What does Brandon do?
Yeah, thanks. And I'm really excited to be on the show. Thanks, Robert. And again, when you gave the toast to Alessandro, I did one off screen as well. Definitely excited for the journey for him, but excited that y'all are continuing the live stream. So I have been a technologist for professionally for about 21, 22 years. I spent most of my career actually as a web developer. I started in the late 90s at the sort of the tail end of the .com boom. Did web development work for consulting shops. I worked for a couple of nonprofits doing work in Texas and Colorado, which is where I've spent most of my career. And then about 11 years or so ago, I had the opportunity to join Microsoft. And I joined Microsoft, and that was sort of my first foray into developer relations. So I was a web evangelist on the Microsoft team in the IE9 HTML5 days, and did that for a couple of years, and then had the opportunity to get into product management and DevRel for another software company. And really just I was continued sort of on the software trajectory for so long. But about 7 or 8 years ago, I picked up my first dev kit, my first Arduino, which was actually a SparkFun Redboard and Explorer kit. I still have the instruction manual for that kit. And I actually got to meet Nathan. It's Nathan, the founder of SparkFun, last year for the first time. And I thanked him profusely for starting the company and creating their kits. But I played with that for the first time. And I had what I like to refer to as that hello world lighting up the first LED experience for the hardware developer. And I really fell in love at that point. I just kind of continued consuming everything I could on the side. My day job was still very much in software product management, but I was just really falling in love with the electronic space, and then by extension, the IoT space. And so about 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to join Particle and start their developer relations team. And I worked at Particle for 2 years. And then last year, was approached by the folks at Blues Wireless and had an opportunity to really get in on the ground floor of a new company doing something very developer focused. And so I am solidly both feet in the hardware and the IoT space, and I love it. I'm just absolutely excited that I took a meandering path to get here, but I'm really happy to be in this place.
That's awesome. Amazing story. You've been doing quite a bit. And you know what's it? I want to kind of talk about this for a second, because in the green room we were talking about kind of remote work, working from home, and you hinted or you mentioned that you've been working from home for quite a while. And in this whole COVID thing that's going on, right? I think a lot of people have been kind of forced into that situation, but there are a
Yeah.
select few that actually enjoy working from home. And even if you don't enjoy working from home, I don't know, maybe could you just share some tips and tricks of do you have any tips and tricks for people who have been working from home for a long time and are maybe just getting fed up? And
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say, I mean, I have been working from home for close to 11 years now. So I'm definitely very seasoned at it. The technology has changed and made a lot of things easier. But what doesn't get easier is sometimes the feeling of isolation, being in the same place. I mean, I'm on Zoom calls and whatnot all day long, but I'm still sort of just here in this box in reality for the most part. And so part of what I have done, kind of to keep saying, I'm fortunate as well that my wife and the kids are here all day long as well. And so that's sort of my water cooler break, is going in periodically and refilling my water bottle, getting up, stretching, going and seeing them. So I will say the most important thing working from home, this may sound silly, is to stay hydrated, because it keeps me out of my seat at least every hour in the house, talking to the family for a moment and then back in. And I have those moments where I need to be heads down, but if I was just isolated in here all day, that would absolutely be challenging. So if you have the opportunity, that's great. But even still, doing this COVID thing for the last 15 months now, it's been the longest I've ever gone in my career without traveling. And I would always say that the thing that really made working from home easier is that once every month or so, I ended up at a conference, an event, or visiting the HQ for whatever company I'm with. And I look forward to those days, hopefully returning relatively soon, because it is nice to just meet people, meet developers, be in person, and actually get to have meaningful conversations. So fingers crossed, we're nearly there. Let's just stay the course, right?
yeah, that's one of the big things for me. I mean, is the traveling. It just completely halted, and I
Yeah.
think the same thing for me. And it doesn't always have to be kids or your wife, right? It could also be cats or a dog.
Oh,
But yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We have a
cool.
cat as well that also frequents my office certain times. So absolutely. Any companionship you can find, for sure. It helps. It helps the working from home life.
Nice, cool. Thanks for the tips.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do now is what we call the icebreaker round, right? So people who might not be so familiar with you, they got to know you a little bit, but this is going to get everyone a little bit closer to you. So let's do what we call the innovation cribs, and I'm going to hit this button. I love that little beat that we have going there.
I know, that's really good.
I want to call out one of our hugest helpers here, Rachel, who basically gets all of these graphics and cool scenes.
That's awesome.
For us.
Awesome.
Yeah. But so innovation coffee cribs, here we go. This is the segment where we see what is on your desk, what you have kind of glowing back behind you, any cool gadgets you can show us and share with us that we can't really see on the camera.
Yeah, let me change up. I'll actually show you a couple of different webcam views, because I have a few here. That's not that one yet. I picked the wrong one first. This is my desk just to my right here. It's a little bit disorganized, but basically this is the things I'm working on for work, and also some things that I'm playing with on the side. So from work-related things, we'll get to these. There's a couple of blues pieces of hardware here. I have the Scilab's new Thunderboard, or newish Thunderboard. We actually had a customer in our community in the forum that was asking for help using Scilab's Simplicity Studio IDE with the note card. So I'm working on building a tutorial for that. And then I have if Mark Poo were here, he would be proud. I have a Balena Fin on my desk, and I am working really hard on getting a featured project up for this, because I love this little SBC, and that's a lot of fun to work with. I also have on my wall behind me, I'll give you a little sneak peek of what my wall looks like. I have some of my favorite microcontrollers and dev boards mounted on the wall, but I also have this build light, this industrial light stack, and I'm going to save that one for later. That's just a bit of a sneak peek. I'm going to demo exactly what this is a little bit later on in the show, but I absolutely love having this thing behind me as well.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm excited. We were talking in the green room about that as well. And there are some cool demos coming up at the end of this episode. I think we're going to have 2 or 3 of them. Brandon's going to be showing us. So very cool. You'll get to see some of those gadgets again. So on to the theme of this particular episode. Brandon, we got to know you. Now let's get to know Blues Wireless. So could you tell us a little bit about what is Blues Wireless? What does this company do? And what can you talk to us about Blues Wireless?
Yeah, absolutely. So Blues Wireless, we are a hardware and services company that's designed to make cellular IoT developer friendly. It is, the words cellular and developer friendly don't typically go hand in hand, or they haven't traditionally. And so it is, this company was started about 2.5 years ago, and we really set out to build a set of tools and services that could really help developers ship actual productive IoT prototypes, pilots, full-on production applications using the tools and services that we provide. So our company was started by Ray Ozzie. And if you are not familiar with the name, Ray Ozzie was the person who created Lotus Notes many, many years ago, which was then sold to IBM. He created Groove, which was then acquired by Microsoft. And he spent about 4 or 5 years, I believe, as Microsoft's chief strategy officer and then chief technology officer after Bill Gates retired, and has founded 5 or 6 different startups over the course of of his very storied career. And after he had transitioned away from Microsoft and was doing some nonprofit work, he was on the board for a nonprofit, or a citizen science nonprofit, called Safecast. And Safecast was an organization that was formed in the wake of the Fukushima nuclear disaster in 2011. Actually, just had the 10-year anniversary of that a couple of months ago. And the Safecast team really their intention was to do a lot of radiation monitoring around the exclusion zone near the Fukushima nuclear center. And what they were having trouble doing was creating monitoring devices that they could actually drop into the exclusion zone that would run on a wide area networking technology and actually live on battery power. And so Ray and the team really set out to build a low power cellular based device. Again, another set of words that don't tend to be used together, to build a low power cellular device that could actually be used for these kinds of situations. And after spending years just sort of evaluating the space and seeing what else was out there, Ray did what so many entrepreneurial people like him tend to do, which is to just build something, build a solution to solve his own problem, but then create something that other developers could use. And so now here we are. We just officially launched all of our products in December of last year, and we are on the market and just trying to grow.
Thank you for all that explanation. And it's nice to know the kind of journey towards these devices that you just recently launched in December. I think it's very interesting because, as a developer, I'm wondering if any other people in the chat here might resonate with me. Probably not Dara. I think I saw Dara in there, but, you talk about connectivity, right? And you talk about Wi-Fi, you talk about Bluetooth, you talk about LoRa. Then all of a sudden, when you start mentioning cellular, I just start to cringe. I'm like, cellular, I don't know anything about cellular. I don't want to touch that. And so hearing that Blues Wireless is starting to tackle making cellular development more developer friendly, I think that's very interesting. I think that's very cool. And I do have some questions about your developer network shortly. But first, cool. I want to talk about this note card. So you launched a bunch of devices in December, you said. Mm-hmm. And I was scouring your website. I found that you have a bunch of really cool hardware there. So maybe, I don't know if you could walk us through your product line and talk about the different, devices you have, what the IO is, maybe comb over some of the specs.
Yeah, Robert, that's a great question. And the comment about getting a little cringy when you hear cellular as a developer, I'm in the exact same boat, and I have been for years. And what really appealed to me when I made the decision to jump to Blues was the answer to that question. The thing that made it less cringy for me is that the note card, which is our core module, which is just a 30 by 34 system on module device. And I'll hold one of these up to the camera. It's actually the thing that's in the center of this board here, which we'll talk about in a moment. This is the note card. This has a cellular modem on the back. And what's unique about this from a developer perspective is that there's no data plan that you have to pay month to month. There is a data plan, but it's prepaid with a device, right? The cost of the device and the devices start at $49. That's all you'll pay for 10 years and 500 megs of data actually included. So there's no activation fees, no deactivation fees. There's no monthly charge. There's no monthly data cap. It is literally one price, $49, 500 megs, 10 years. You can use it for anything you want. The way that I like to look at that is it makes cellular IoT, you can actually prototype without fear on cellular, right? What I've tended to do in the past is I'll use Wi-Fi to build prototypes because I know that I don't have to worry about it. But there's always a set of problems that I try to solve that need to be outside, like the project I just published this morning, which I know we'll talk about, where I'm away from my own Wi-Fi, doing an asset tracker on my car or something along those lines. Those are a class of problems that you just can't solve with Wi-Fi. And so it's really, really nice to be able to just tinker and toy with building prototypes and not worry that I'm running the clock on a monthly bill the second that I turn on the device. And so it starts with a note card. This is the core piece here. And then what we provide in addition to the note card is a series of what we refer to as note carriers. And the note carriers are their companion boards that have cellular and GPS antennas on them, external SIM if you need it, USB access for programming the device. There's a quick connector on a couple of these note carriers, but this is basically designed to be your dev kit effectively. The note card itself is a product that you would embed in a Arjit, I love that comment. Thank you. I had to see it and respond. I appreciate that. The note card itself, you would embed in your own custom PCB if you got to that point of going to production. But we create a lot of these note carriers to design to really accelerate your initial prototypes. And so we have a couple of different variants. There's the note carrier. What this is referred to as the note carrier AL, which is, there's a header pin at the top. This is for breadboarding your own solution. There is a Grove connector on this. You can pull in any Grove compatible device. And then there's a USB plug on the side for doing local debugging and talking to the device, what have you. There's a couple of other variants. There's another called the note carrier AF, which stands for Adafruit Feather. So this has a Feather compatible slot in it. You'll see what's in here now is a Feather M4 Express. So you can use any of the 50 plus Feathers that are available on the market. This also has a couple of Grove ports and a quick port on it as well. And then the third one, and this is one that I don't have on my desk because I have 3 of these all actively deployed in projects right now, and that's the Note Carrier Pi hat. And that uses just the Pi 40-pin header. You plug the note carrier on top. It's got a note card that slots in there, and you're off to the races. And that one works with any Pi compatible single board computer like the Jetson Nano, works with the Pi Zero, you name it. And this is really exciting to me. The fact that the note card is prepaid was a big selling point for me joining the company. But the other piece, and maybe you all have picked up on this as I've talked about all these different MCUs and single board computers, is you can use whatever programming language you want. You want to do Arduino on your host, great. You want to do CircuitPython, Python on a Pi, my personal favorites, you can do that as well. It's really just sort of bring your own host. And we just provide that socket modem that you can use to get data into the cloud.
So Brandon, thank you for sharing all of those devices. I actually want to talk a little bit more about this prepaid plan. In the past, I've worked with one of our ARM innovators, David Tischler from Molina, on what we called extreme edge use case with, a self-sustainable, basically developer kit that you could throw out into the wild with solar power, and it used a cellular modem, LTE, to communicate, right? Now, one of the big problems we had was that our device was only enabled to use certain carriers, right? So we couldn't just plug in any carrier we wanted. We had to get a SIM card from only certain carriers. So I'm kind of curious, actually, are you able to talk a little bit more about how you're able to enable this, and also you do have that SIM card slot. So, is this enabled for any carrier? Can you just can I pull the card out of my cell phone, put it in there and just use it as cellular?
I would be interested to see what happened if you pulled the card out of your cell phone and popped it in. I don't know. I can't give you an answer to that because I haven't tried it. Maybe I don't recommend it, but I will say, the note card itself, the cellular module that's on the device, there's a QuickTel modem on the back, and the built-in plan is designed to work in over 135 countries. And so we have a complete list of those countries on our dev site in the data sheet for the note card, if you're interested in looking. But if there's a case where you are, there's potentially coverage concerns, or really more importantly, you're in one of those few countries that we don't yet have support for. A few of the note cards, or the note carriers, like the AL and the Pi and the Feather, all three that I shared, actually do have an external SIM slot. So for customers and friends of mine that I'm working with in India, for instance, they're using Airtel because we don't yet have support in India, but they can pop in an Airtel SIM, change a quick command on the note card API, and they're off to the races. They're good to go. All of the cloud features still work as designed.
Awesome. So let's talk about where did you take part in any of the development of this device? Because I want to talk a little bit about the SoC on there. You have the Cortex M MCU STM32 chip on there. What led Blues Wireless to choose this chipset?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is probably a behind the scenes secret that maybe I haven't talked about publicly before, but I'll share with you all, friends here on the stream. But one of the cool things about working with Ray Ozzie is that he has been effectively the hardware hacker in chief for the last 2.5 years. He really envisioned and got his hands dirty on a lot of this hardware. And so he has relationships with ST Microelectronics, and really just decided very early on that he really loved their development tool chain. He loved their SDKs, and decided to use the STM32 F series for our current set of note cards, because he just felt like it was a great tool chain. He liked the prices we got, of course, but really more importantly, that it was a nice MCU for us to actually put on the device itself.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, the STM32, it's everywhere and it's well supported. So, I mean, I definitely would support that being the chip of choice. That's really cool.
And it also, one of the other powerful features about it is that another advantage is that it actually is a pretty low power STM32. We talked about, I mentioned low power and cellular being really challenging. And one of the things that we've done with the note card that makes this possible and leveraging the STM32 for this is that when the cellular modem is off, this is designed to be a relative, if you build a sleepy device where you're only waking up every hour to take readings and only connecting to the cell network every couple of hours to send readings or what have you, that the note card only runs around 8 microamps when it's idling. So there's obviously a little bit more of a power burst when it's connecting to GPS, which is optional, or when it's connecting to cell. But every other time, it's really been optimized to just draw as little power as possible. And 8 microamps is less than the internal draw of a LiPo battery. So when it's sleeping, it's actually not contributing a lot to the project. So the ST family of chips really helps in that regard as well.
Yeah, as soon as you connect as soon as you provide any connectivity, all of a sudden, of course, the power consumption goes up, and I imagine even more with cellular. So, that's definitely something to look at.
Yeah, it can be. The advantage, however, of using this approach as a socket modem compared to, say, a Wi-Fi chip is that Wi-Fi tends to be very, very greedy, both in terms of data use and also its power consumption. And it's much harder to fine tune the bandwidth or the power draw of a Wi-Fi chip than it is what we're doing with a QuickTel modem and cellular. So it's really nice to have that as an option.
Very nice. And so I have a note here about NoteHub.io and how Blues Wireless and these particular devices are backed by NoteHub.io cloud service. Could you just touch a little bit on what that means, what people can do with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mentioned earlier, I've been doing IoT apps for the last 6 or 7 years now. And I think we all are aware that when you come to trying to design a solution, your full stack of an IoT application starts with the sensors, the MCU, the hardware piece that's really fun, the firmware to make it go. And then the other side of that, for a lot of us, the real value of what we're trying to get is data in our cloud applications, data visualizations, remote control, insight, intelligence, whatever you want to call it. It's something out the other end. And the note card and our products are really designed to fill in that middle space. The hardest part of any IoT solution is how you get your sensor data to that end application to actually do something with it. And so the note card is only half of that story. The other piece is its secure connection to our cloud service, which we call NoteHub.io. NoteHub.io is a secure endpoint that lives in our own tunnels. And because you're using cellular, all of the traffic between the note card and NoteHub occurs off the internet. direct into our own VPN. And it's designed to be basically the place where you pump your data from the note card ultimately to your cloud application. So it's a very thin layer that really prioritizes routing data out, creating abstractions, and giving the ability to get your data into services like UbiDots or DataCake, or even use third-party services like Twilio for messaging and things like that as well. So really end-to-end, we like to refer to the whole system as the note card and the note hub are a device to cloud data pump. It's really just getting data, sending it to your ultimate cloud application so you can do something with it.
Nice, very nice. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, right? Like, what good is the data if it's just out there and never sent anywhere? You can't use it, right? You have to go collect it manually, and that would kind of defeat the purpose.
Absolutely.
So very cool. I have now questions from the community because several have popped up here. I think we've rattled on for about 30 minutes. It's time to pay attention to our viewers here.
All right.
So here we go. Let's do the first one. We'll do this one right here from Alan. So is Blues Wireless using their own Bluetooth and cellular network stacks?
It's a great question, Alan. The note card doesn't have Bluetooth in the current set of products that we have, but with the cellular network, we have our carrier partner is AT&T. So we have coverage in every country that AT&T either has a roaming partner with or direct access to. So that's the 135 countries. So we don't operate as an MVNO. We don't have to manage those network connections directly. We have a partnership with AT&T that helps facilitate that support.
Okay, cool. Hope that answers your question there, Alan. I'm sure it does. Next one is from Arjit, one of our esteemed community developers here. So Brandon, have you used the note card with the Jetson GPU plus cellular? Can do too much worthy stuff.
Awesome. Arjit, hey, good to hear from you. And I love that question. I have not personally, but I can tell you a friend of mine, Paul DiCarlo, who's on the advocacy team at Microsoft and works in Azure IoT, and he sent me pictures and proof it works. It works well. I have on my list of actually, I have a Jetson, so there's really no excuse, but I've just been getting derailed by too many other things, but it works, and it's a great alternative to look at to the Pi.
Excellent. There you go, Arjit. Hopefully that answers your question. This one's from Dara, and Dara, just to fill you in, if this is the Dara, I believe it is. He is one of our ARM innovators, and he does a lot of stuff around cellular. So his question is, what cellular standards do you support? LTE, Cat M2, and MB2 IoT?
Oh, nice. Dara was on our Clubhouse chat, I believe, a couple of months back. So, hey, Dara.
So. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, good to hear from you again. So that's a great question. We have a couple of different variants of the note card itself that have a different cellular modem based on what you're trying to do. There's a wideband and narrowband. The narrowband version does support NB-IoT, and we actually support LTE Cat M and Cat 1 on the wideband versions of the card. So, yeah, good question.
Cool. And this is the last one we have right now. And I will remind everyone that if you do have more questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll definitely try to get to them throughout the show. So this is another one from Arjit here. Brandon, does the power usage increase while using an external SIM with the note card than comparing using the normal usage or the modem that's on the board? Not the modem, I should say, the plan that's on the board.
Yeah. No, Arjit, that's another great question. It doesn't. And the reason why is because the note card itself has an eSIM. And the eSIM is what actually provides the plan, but it still goes to the same QuickTel modem. And so the power draw is going to be the same whether you're using an external SIM or using the eSIM built into the device itself.
All right, cool. So no additional power usage, regardless of whether you're using the external SIM or the eSIM. Cool. So now with all these developer questions, I think they're all great. Thank you for asking them. And great answers, by the way. I think it's time to talk about how people would use this in a product, right? Because I mean, ultimately people are developing things. Sometimes it's for fun, just to kind of make something for their house. But a lot of times these great ideas turn into products. And so my question to you, and we've asked this to other people who make hardware, can people use these devices directly in a product? Are you certified? Are they certified to be used in products? Where are they certified? And if so, or if not, what would be the process of actually creating a product around these devices?
Yeah, it's a great question. So they are. The note card is actually currently PTCRB end product certified, and we have various other FCC and CE certifications pending. So those are in the process. They will be there soon. If you're starting to work on a product with us today, we'd be certified by the time you actually need it. So, yeah.
Okay, cool. And I think this one kind of piggybacks on that one. A lot of times, devices, they may include a little bit more or not enough for some products. Does Blues Wireless offer any sort of services or kind of hand-holding help to developers who might need to use your design to create a derivative design?
Yeah, that's another great question. There's a couple of different variations of answers to that. One is that if you're looking at spinning your own PCB in our GitHub, which I'll post the link to in private chat, Robert, so you can throw that up. But in our GitHub, which is actually just github.com/blues, but I'll throw it in. We do have a hardware repo that has design files for. There's dimension files for the note card, and there are full design files, outputs from schematics and layouts for all of our note carriers. So you can actually take one of those and design your own PCB. We did have a customer that created his own PCB for the Raspberry Pi Pico. He beat me to it. I wanted to do it, and he got there first, and it worked great. And so we had a customer that did that, shared it on our developer community, which is discuss.blues.io. And so that's definitely one place. And the community is a great place to share feedback if you're building a custom design. I think there's somebody else that was actually working on I'm trying to remember now, a different variation, but that's a great place to get help from the hardware and firmware folks in our community. And then beyond that, if you're designing a full-on product, we actually have partners, a number of design partners, from implementation to hardware design to double E services, what have you, available, and we connect our customers with those partners as those opportunities actually pop up.
That's awesome. I think that alone, that's a huge tool, right? I mean, we always talk about developing and creating these things, but when it comes to the end to end, right? Like a lot of times developers get stuck right in that middle part and don't have a way to advance. They have to maybe switch devices or go back to the drawing board, right? So it's really nice to know that you can start with the device and end with that device or with the company that originally started helping you out.
Yeah.
So definitely cool. So before we move on, because you kind of provided me with a perfect segue, we've been just hitting these really well, but into the developer community that you all host. There's one more question here from Dara, and this one he's calling a deep dive question. Do you see 5G NB IoT network slicing being possible for your use case?
Yes, it is possible. I can't give any specifics or timelines on when we would look at implementing it, but we're absolutely paying attention to as cellular networks grow and improve and new opportunities and new deployments become more mainstream. We're actually looking at that. And that's true for us. It's true with our relationship with Quictel, who provides our modems, as well as with ST and their set of devices that we use for the MCU on the note card. So possible, yes, for sure. Great question, Dara.
Awesome. Yeah, he provided a little example here: ultra reliable, low latency, and eMBB. But cool. And then David said, "What is?" Yeah, that question was over my head too. So David,
well, it's a little bit. I mean, frankly, maybe we should ask Dara to answer it, because I can give you a very poor answer for it, but it's effectively what my understanding of NB-IoT network slicing is, that it gives you better roaming reliability across towers, where today NB-IoT tower, you can't bounce between towers like you can on LTM Cat 1 networks. That's my understanding of network slicing. But Dara, come on in and tell me if I'm wrong. I'm happy to be educated today. I need to learn something.
Dara, if you write a nicely worded post here in the chat, we'll definitely read it out loud so that we can get this answered. Cool. Yeah. And last question here, it looks like, let's see, from Jim, and we'll move on to my questions. Have any LoRaWAN indoor gateway manufacturers yet incorporated a note card, if you're able to share?
Not anything that I can talk about publicly at this point, but I will say this, Jim, it's a great question. Hey, Jim, good to hear from you. We believe that cellular and LoRa actually work quite well side by side in many sorts of use cases. So definitely keep an eye on, the work that we're doing with other partners. We don't see cellular and LoRa mutually exclusive for a lot of certain use cases. So definitely be interesting to see where we can go there.
Great, great. And these are awesome questions. And this kind of is a perfect segue now into the Blues Wireless Community Developer Network, which I have to say, I was digging around that developer website. It is awesome. You guys have a lot of cool stuff going on there. Very well organized. The documentation looks very, very good. And there's the link right down there, dev.blues.io. Go check it out. My question to you is, could you talk a little bit more about the developer experience? So I'm a new developer. I may already have some idea about you know, how to work in cellular and how to do these types of things, but where do I start and what does that experience look like from the beginning to prototyping with Blues Wireless?
Yeah, that's great. And thank you very much for the compliment. I personally love to hear that, because as we were getting ready for our public launch, a lot of 2020 was heads down, getting all these various pieces ready to get out the door. So it's been really great to hear that kind of positive feedback so far as we get out there. But yeah, a lot of developers, and the reason why developer experience was such an early important factor for us is because when we say we wanted to provide developer-friendly cellular IoT, it's not just the hardware, it's not just the firmware programming experience, but you're getting started experience, your onboarding, what that even looks like. And so a lot of what we really focused on is providing people that really pleasant new experience with the note card when they get that first device. And so I'm going to switch. I think this is probably a good time for me to switch to sharing my screen so that y'all can see exactly what our developer portal looks like if you're not there now in another tab. But this is dev.blues.io. And when a lot of folks come here for the first time, if they purchase a note card or if they're just trying us out, there's a couple of different things you can do. If you're just visiting the site, one of the first things that we like to show people is an idea of what the note card API actually looks like. I haven't mentioned this explicitly yet, but Arijit did actually put it in the chat. The note card, another developer-friendly aspect of it is it's a 100% JSON API. So JSON in, JSON out. When you're talking to the device, whether it's from the console or whether it's from your host MCU, be it Python or C or Arduino wiring, you're using JSON to talk to the device and actually get a response back. And so we have a sneak peek that actually walks you through a bit of a example of what it looks like to actually use the device for the first time. But once you actually buy the device, the next piece that's really interesting is we send people to what we refer to as our note card quick start. And the quick start is customized depending on which one of these note carriers you purchase. So if you have the AF, or in my case, I have the AL on my desk right here. So it gives you instructions on how to actually assemble the thing, get it together. We always love a good hardware hookup guide. But then from there, we actually have an in-browser note card playground that you can connect to. So all you need to do is actually plug your note card and note carrier into USB connected to your computer. And then in Chrome or Edge or Brave, you can actually pair directly to the device and start sending requests. And so we actually walk through the tutorial, actually gives you a bunch of things to actually copy and paste. And so you can actually see the version number of the physical note card that you're running. And then the tutorial actually walks you through the exercise of setting up your first project in Note Hub, and then going on and assigning. Again, you'll see every one of these requests or commands to the note card is just me sending in a JSON command. And so that includes the association between the note card and the Note Hub. And then once I've created that association, the process of syncing, of inspecting the state of a sync and what have you, and then finally adding data, all getting to the important part. And the adding data piece, we give you this example of adding what we refer to as a note. That's some of our sort of our history with Ray starting Lotus Notes. You'll see the word note used in a lot of the stuff that we do. And so an event or something that's added into a device is a note. And so you can add temperature and humidity data, and then ultimately sync that off onto the device, or sync that off to Note Hub. And so this is really the first experience that a lot of developers or customers will get into, is understanding what it's like to actually use the note card, how you send JSON commands directly. And then once you've gotten past that point, we have a number of sensor tutorials that are customized to Arduino, C, CircuitPython, Python. So for instance, if you want to use CircuitPython and a Feather, the note carrier AF, we have a full example of how to actually write firmware that reads from a BME 680 or whichever sensor you have on hand and sends that out to the Note Hub. And then on the other end, when I talked earlier about the device to cloud data pump story, we also have a number of tutorials for initial state, UbiDots, Google, Azure, AWS, IoT, and we actually have one for Data Cake that's coming today or tomorrow. I actually have to review the PR for that one this afternoon and get it in there. But it's really designed to give developers in the first couple of hours, all the way from the device to writing host firmware to talk to the note card, up to routing to a cloud application and building fancy visualizations using third-party cloud tools. And you can, again, do most of this from within the browser to really get started with.
I love how modular it is, right? I mean, you know, when you start offering so many of these devices and then different ways to plug these devices in together into the carrier boards, you end up with sometimes very messy documentation, but you have this nice modular approach to documenting it where you can literally choose your pathway and then get the stuff you need. And so I think that that's very helpful for developers. So very, very, very cool. Another kudos.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that. Yeah, that was something that we worked hard on early on because we wanted to give people, we wanted to reinforce this idea that it was a bring your own language, but also let people choose, like, are you on an ESP32? We even have tutorials in here. If you're wanting to use one of the STM discovery or Nucleo boards, they've got full on a wide variety. And like I mentioned at the beginning, when I shared the image of my Scilabs Thunderboard, I'm actually doing another one of these using the Thunderboard as well, so that we can continue to expand that menu of options for new developers.
So I have two comments here, or one question from Arjit, I think, while we're on the topic of plugging the USB into your computer and just having it detect. This one says, Brandon, does that use web USB interface? It
does. Yeah, and which is why you'll find it doesn't work in Safari or Firefox. If that's your browser of choice, we do actually have a command line utility that does everything that we have within the browser. And we have docs in that and our dev site as well. So, but if you want to use the browser and you like Chrome or Edge or Brave, then it'll work fine.
Nice. And we finally got a response from Dara. I was expecting some huge paragraph, but he basically says network slicing. It's like food, fast, cheap, good. Pick two. Cheap and good.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thank you. All right. So now I think it's about time. I know you kind of walked us through this playground, but you said you had 3 demos. I'm guessing that was one of them.
That was one of them. That was the first one. Yeah.
So we have 2 more demos to go. Let's start. Let's get those going.
We have 2 more. Yeah. All right. It looks like we have time, I think. So that's great. Yeah. Let me switch back to my screen and I will show you. Actually, I'm going to turn my webcam over to the sneak peek that I shared earlier of the build light here on my desk. So I'm going to switch back to that for a moment, and then I will go back to my screen. And the fun part about this build light is that it is a build. It's a status monitoring light for our Python SDK. So I spent a lot of time. We have SDKs for Python, for C, for Go, Arduino as well. I have done most of my maintenance work has been on the Python SDK. And so when I was working on some of my first projects last year, I decided what I would do was take a note card in our note carrier AF. So this is actually running a Feather device on here, wire it up to an 8-channel relay, and then hook that up to an industrial light stack that I got off of Amazon. That's just a 12-volt light stack. I think they're $20-30. And then all of that is actually sitting on top of a little stand from a company, friends of mine at a company called PhaseDoc. And they sell these sort of portable stands, and I just mounted this one on the wall. But the light stack, what it's showing you is the state of the build of the Note Python library. So I actually have a set of GitHub actions that are hooked up to my Python library. And what the GitHub actions do is when anybody submits a pull request to the library, it actually will run the unit tests that I have in Python for the library, and also lint, and then finally publish to pip. So the entire Pippy. So the entire process is completely automated when a pull request comes in or when I accept the PR. So one of the things that I did was I actually used our API, the NoteHub API, to actually send inbound messages to the note card. So the note card is a bidirectional device. You can send messages from the note card up to the cloud. You can also talk back into the cloud to your note card. And so I have this wired up to GitHub Actions. And so this worked an hour or so ago, the last time I tested. We all know how live demos go. So we'll see how this actually goes again. Let me actually go back here. So I'm going to run this.
I did not make a sacrifice this morning. So
I did. So it's fine. I think we should be all right. Yeah, I think we should be all right. So I'm running this. I just triggered it manually. So let me go into the build so that you can actually see it happen. And if all goes well and my device is still behaving nicely, you'll see the lights have changed. So blue signifies that the device is now, it's now doing the build. When it goes to white, doing the build and linting. And then when it goes to white, that means it's actually running the tests. And then after it is done running, so it's doing PyTest right now. It's running about 36 of the unit tests that I have on the device. And when that's done, it'll go back to green here. And hopefully it should be relatively soon. And there we go. So I know that the build has worked. When somebody submits a PR to NotePython in the middle of the day and I don't know about it, I am notified by my light. But the cool thing about this was it's really just designed to not only illustrate that the note card is a bidirectional device, and I have a full write-up on how I did this on Hackster, but also just to illustrate that it's really easy to take industrial style things like a light stack that you would find on a machine on a shop floor and adapt them for more of a makery style of prototype or project.
I'm hoping you tried it with a buzzer first and then realized how annoying it was.
I would love to tell you that I did, but I feel like I knew in advance that was going to really tick me off if I left it on. So I didn't.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, we got some comments here. People want that device. People want that light stack. So pretty cool. Nice. All right. Well, that was a really fun demo. And now we have one more. And I'm told this one is a very fresh one. So we can almost say like you saw it here first.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I saw it here first. I was scrambling. Didn't know if it was going to work, but I managed to get another demo done this morning. And it is there's a Hackster project that I put together for this. And the whole idea was to do tiny ML, machine learning with Edge Impulse, with a note card, with a Raspberry Pi, and Twilio on the DE filter tank that runs in the back of my, or near my pool in my backyard. So I have been using, effectively the way that the process worked is I have a Raspberry Pi and a webcam that are actually sitting right up near the tank in my backyard. And this tank, basically, I need to monitor the pressure tank because it goes between 15 to 25 is a good reading. Under 15 means I need to actually clean out the basket, which is a really nasty, messy job. And if it's over 30, it means I need to backwash the pool. And it was one of those cases where I thought, oh, I guess I could put like a digital pressure sensor in line with the tank, and that would be kind of interesting. But then in February, I saw a blog post from Pete Warden, who's on the TensorFlow team at Google, and he had talked about this idea of screen scraping digital devices to create an API of something that's analog. And I thought that was really fascinating. So what I did was I tried to replicate that with the hardware that I had on hand. So I took a Raspberry Pi. It's got a Pi Juice hat, solar panel on top of it, and it also has the note card and the note carrier Pi on it. And what I did was I took I think initially I started with about 250 photos of the tank in the various states. And the states that I want to detect are off, normal, high, or low. And took about 250 pictures, tuned the model, did the whole Edge Impulse thing. You know, they had just, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, released Linux SBC support, including the Pi. So I was able to beta test that out pretty early and give it a try. And I ended up getting about 398 images. And so it's actually on right now and connected. So this is a live view of my tank. It looks like it's hovering at about 24, what I can see here with my human eyes. So I'll do a sample so I can actually see what my machine tells me. My ML model will tell me whether or not I'm wrong and my eyes deceive me. But it should actually tell me that it sees, normal. Everything's fine. It's well within range. Yeah, it sees that. It's very confident, 100% that this is normal. So that's my model that's actually running there. But let me actually show you what I did locally. So I
Do you have
created.
this?
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Do you have this by chance set up to like notify you? Like if something does go haywire, will it notify
Yes,
you?
I
Okay, good.
do. I do. Yeah, and that's the piece that I want to. I'll bring that up here in just a second. Hopefully, it'll work. But what I'm doing in Python is I'm basically using the note card, and I mentioned we have a Python SDK. So I'm talking to the note card again using the exact same JSON API, setting the product that it needs to be assigned to, reading from the camera, performing an inference based on classifying the output based on my labels, and then sending that data via a note.add request to NoteHub, to our cloud service. What that ends up looking like when I run it is here. If I go to my pool tank monitor, let me refresh this, is that as new messages come in, I'm sending a full classification message in the JSON body that includes the various readings. So you could imagine I could take this, and again, because NoteHub is just meant to be a data pump, set up a route out to Ubidots and create a gauge that shows you exactly where my tank is in real time using their cloud service. But what I also did was I wanted to check and see if the tank is too low or too high. So if the state that I get back is too low or too high, I send a separate note to the note card in another file called tank alert. And then if the tank pressure is low or high, I send a different body with this message. And then on the NoteHub side, you'll notice here I have this Twilio SMS alert. I'm not going to click on it because then you'll see my key. So you won't get to see that. But this Twilio SMS alert basically uses Twilio's messaging API to send me a message anytime that value is too low or too high. And I have this rigged right now to simulate that. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run this. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to pull open QuickTime. And I'll go to my camera and see go to my phone. Let me dismiss my history before I go to that.
While
Here, actually, I'll do this. I'll pull up Kraken on my phone and we'll just watch Dogecoin while I run this demo. So, so I'm going to run the demo. Oh, we cancel out of that. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run the demo, and it's actually going to connect to the tank right here in real time. It should actually see that the tank pressure is low, fire off that message to the note card, and it'll automatically sync. So you'll see tank alert QO, tank pressure is low, clean impeller. What's happening now at this point is that message is being routed to NoteHub, which is then sending it along to Twilio's SMS API, my own account. And then the SMS API should actually send me a text here momentarily. Again, if this works, the first two demos worked great. Am I going to be 3 for 3 today? I don't know. I mean, we could sit around for the next 5 minutes and wait. We'll see.
At least we can hashtag Dogecoin.
There it is. There it is. Tank pressure is low, clean impeller. See? Yeah, we can hashtag Dogecoin. There you go. Yeah, so it did work, and you'll see that I've been running this demo a lot for testing purposes. But yeah, it works. So that's really that's an example of really that end-to-end. I'm going all the way from a local model. It's a TinyML model running on my tank. When I have it fully deployed, it's just going to run on Cellular, and then ultimately up to Twilio to send me a text when I need to do something to take action. And that was a really fun project to do.
That's awesome. And you are the 3 for 3 champion. I don't know if we've had 3 successful demos in a row on this show yet. So very cool.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. This is awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon, for showing us this. Thank you so much for coming here, telling us about yourself, representing Blues Wireless, and I think amazingly representing Blues Wireless. It's just been such an awesome time. At this point now, we have about 3 minutes left. We like to offer our guests an opportunity to give a shameless plug, and I think you have something to offer our viewers at this point.
I do. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, and again, thanks again for having me. This has been an absolute blast. So I love watching the show, participating when I can. So it's been neat to be on the other side of it. So yes, my shameless plug is a benefit to everybody here listening. We have a 20% off discount code for anybody here on Innovation Coffee today or watching the recording later. So this is 20%. It's good for any one of our kits. That would be the Feather kit or the Pi kit. You could also use it for the note carrier AL if you prefer, but any one of those, and you can start using the note card. The other thing that I'll say is please visit us at dev.blues.io. And more importantly, if you check us out and you start using the product, come over to discuss.blues.io and join the community. We are a small but growing and active community. We love hearing what people are building. We love helping you debug your prototypes and just seeing what's going on. So it's a lot of fun, and we hope to hear from you soon.
Well said. Perfect. And there is the code right down below. I'm going to make sure that we also share it in the chat so you can possibly click on it. It will also be available in the description of the video. So Brandon, closing this out, once again, I want to thank you so much for your time. An hour, I hope, well spent. All the viewers out there, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I know that your time is also very valuable, so we appreciate you spending it here with us at the ARMS Innovation Coffee. I want to give one last cheers to you, Brandon, and one last cheers to Alessandro Grande, our previously well-known co-host with the most, or co-host of the most. Either way, thank you so much.
I like it.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to click this outro. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your week. Brandon, take care.
Thanks.